Hey guys, what's up? It's Matt Lane, and welcome back to another weekly podcast episode with Jay Bustin and myself. Episode 9. Today we are still alive and still doing this.
Fun fact, if you take today's podcast and play it backwards / upside down, it's episode 6.
You know what's fun? That's not wrong. So today, gonna be talking about this. I'm almost nervous to even start talking about this topic.
All right, then I'll do it. I've been looking forward to this for 9 episodes, dude. So way back when we started this series, we just started pulling games that we wanted to talk about out, and we noticed that they were like all PS4 exclusives, which is cool because we both have PS4s. And we didn't do that because we have PS4s. These are games that like are coming out that looked good. Some of them we're not necessarily even interested in playing, but they still like were big games coming out. But they were like all PS4 exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, huh. And so now the Switch is launched. It's been out for a few weeks now, and there's all these Switch exclusives that we've talked about. We talked about Breath of the Wild. We've talked about Mario Odyssey. We mentioned Splatoon 2 in passing. Bomberman R is out. That's a Switch exclusive. ARMS is a horrible looking game, but that's a Switch exclusive. And that's coming out sometime this year. We'll probably talk about that at some point as well. And we're like, what the frick is Microsoft doing these days? And they're just not having it.
That's exactly what we're thinking.
Yeah, like from a marketing standpoint, there's all these exclusives coming out, and Microsoft is just like twiddling their thumbs, like over in the corner, like, it's okay, I have imaginary friends. But like the other thing about it is that Microsoft's exclusives usually also come out for the PC.
Yep.
So I have a PC. I have a gaming PC. Why buy an Xbox? That's kind of my whole thing.
Because it's a great question to ask at this point. Like, what are you getting from an Xbox that you wouldn't get from a game? Because like at this point, it's a very good question because I'm not really sure anymore. And I think one thing I would say is that I think Microsoft got way the frick ahead of themselves when they came out with the Xbox One. And what I mean by that is, if you remember when they launched, they went this route of talking about, although yes, it's gaming, the biggest thing for consoles in the future is for it to be a media thing as well. I'm like, that's kind of true, maybe, but with like Chromecast and Apple TV and all that stuff you have that's really cheap and not,
or like, just like a smart TV.
Yeah, or smart. Like I see what you're coming from, but why you would focus so much on that stuff and not do what your own freaking system needed to do so much that PlayStation 4, for the first time ever between these two battling, actually had a definitive winner to where it just whooped the freaking Xbox One in the freaking rear. And then on top of that, now you have, as we are talking about in this topic, just exclusive after exclusive and good ones at that coming from the PlayStation 4, and just freaking nothing from Microsoft. Like, you can't lean on Halo anymore. You have got to do something else.
That's... In my circle of friends, the Xbox is known as the Halo machine, and that's it.
Yeah, and you can't even lean on that anymore because that's overdone. But
I will say this for the Xbox. There were 2 games so far that has been released for the Xbox that I want to play that did not get released for PC. And those are Sunset Overdrive, which I heard was not that good. So I'm no longer really looking forward to playing that game. Although I don't really trust reviewers that much these days.
That is true.
But then the other one is Rare Replay. I would love to have Rare Replay as a part of my collection. I want it to come to PC. I don't want to buy an Xbox just for 30 Rare games. But, it is what it is. But just looking back on it all, if you remember E3 this past June, every game they announced, it would be like exclusively on Xbox One and Windows 10. It's like, then why buy an Xbox One? Like,
there's no reason to.
Yeah, and it's like, it's sad because like the 360 was such a strong console. It was such a strong console. One of the best consoles, I think. I still use a 360 controller to this day for my PC. But like the one, just like, it's just, ever since they were talking about, like, do you remember the controversy behind the Xbox One and like the whole game sharing and it had to be online the whole time? And it's like, and they rescinded most of that. But like, even from those days, like everyone was like, I don't know about Microsoft right now, and Sony capitalized on that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like nobody's business.
Rightfully so. I mean, that was a smart business decision on their part. And then Xbox One not doing full 1080p. Like, what?
Does it not do full 1080p?
Nope.
Are you serious?
Nope.
The Wii U does 1080p.
Yep. It says that it is the equivalent of it, but on paper it is not 1080p.
So it does 1080i probably.
I don't remember what it was, but their excuse for it was that TVs are not caught up with the technology. And then like, immediately after that, 4K started to come. Like, okay, try again, Microsoft.
Yeah, now you've got Project Scorpio coming out, which is just going to be a bank breaker for nothing.
That's I know we're at timer, but we'll go a little bit over on it just because this is such a salty topic. But it like the biggest draw to consoles that you have is that they are cheaper than building a good gaming PC, because gaming PCs are not cheap. They're not affordable in most households. It's something for very serious gamers because you got to put a lot of money in it. You got to put a lot of thought into it. You don't typically want to buy a self-built gaming station from somewhere because it's way overpriced. You typically want to try to build your own parts.
Yeah, you can save like 40% if you build your own PC, and
right,
like as opposed to just buying the exact same parts already assembled. So
right, but even at that, if you're going to get a good one, it would still be more expensive than getting a console typically.
Correct.
So that is your typical point that you have for what the console can do, and for its price point, that it is typically the better route for someone that's on more of a budget kind of thing. And if your gaming system is not delivering the right type of content, then what is the point? Because with what the Xbox One is delivering, you could probably just put that into a PC, and even though it wouldn't be that strong, it might still be the dadgum equivalent.
Yeah.
Which is...
I don't know, like I feel the same way about it that I feel about the Wii U. It's like I wanted to like it, but at the end of the day, just like it doesn't have the software to support it anymore.
Nope.
And I mean, like I bought a Wii U because Zelda, but like again, exclusives, you know? It doesn't have those. Like all of the games that I want to play are on other things. And so it's like you're not pushing me, Xbox.
I could bash Microsoft all day for this because they sincerely let me down with that whole concept, but I'm going to stick to the semi-timer that we're already way over and move on to the next topic before we just talk about this infinitely. So talking about the game that's coming out is going to be Star Wars Battlefront 2. What we know about this so far is going to be that we're looking to have the first ever single player mode for something like this. And that's going to be a big deal for this series because when they released the first one, all you had was just the online mode, and that was cool. That was its own thing. You know, you had this Call of Duty aspect going on with it. However, kind of like how we talked about earlier, if you didn't have access to online, I mean, you're just not playing the game. The original Battlefront, the way it happened on PlayStation, like the PlayStation 2, right. You had these modes that were very unique, and that's kind of what people looked for, and they didn't even have it in this one. And it was very shocking in the first Battlefront they didn't have the signature mode that everyone was so in love with. And so everybody's hoping that they're going to bring that back, but it has been confirmed that in this one they're going to have a single player mode, which will be like an actual campaign storyline mode that'll be kind of its offline thing. So that's a huge deal for this game because that is something the first one was lacking a lot of. And I know...
yeah, like the first one was fun. But at the end of the day, like if you and me and Fraser weren't sitting down playing it, I wasn't going to play it because I don't like playing by myself with randoms and there's no single player. So
right, absolutely. And that's exactly what it is. Like, there's no reason you would really ever want to play it like by yourself. There's not a whole lot for it. I mean, the dog fighting and stuff, like a lot of that was cool. So you had that kind of introduction to these new concepts. But I mean, other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot to it. But that being said, you know, it's kind of dangerous to me that they're coming out with this so soon. Because like what what else can you really do?
I mean, it seems to be running on the same timetable as like Titanfall, you know?
Yeah, that's true. But granted, I did like Titanfall 2 a lot.
And I mean, and it's kind of like the same story. Like Titanfall 1 came out and people were like, what? There's no story to this? There's no campaign? It's just online shooting each other only, which, you know, is still fun. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But like, you know, campaign mode is fun.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's just something. And, you know, the original Battlefront on PlayStation 2 didn't have a story or anything, but it had this mode that did not require online, and you had built-in AI, so you didn't have to have any sort of connection whatsoever, and you could just play it. And that's something that game needed. That I didn't play it.
It was such an iconic part of Battlefront, you know? It was just kind of weird to see it.
Well, to me, it's the equivalent of Pokemon Go throwing away the battle system of Pokemon.
We've talked about this, dude. You can't have a turn-based battle system in a game like this.
That's game. Just the comparison I'm going with and you know what I'm saying is that you have something.
Okay, fine. All right.
It's the idea, not necessarily the fact that, you know, it doesn't translate well to mobile. Like, I understand that, but just the idea of something so iconic and you just not even throwing an ode to it or not even really doing anything about it. You're like, nope, we're just gonna do something else. Like, especially in this case where you had the means to do it. So you're like, why did you not do it?
Yeah.
It made no sense, but I've well past my timer on that one. So, gonna go ahead and pass it on to Jay, who's gonna be talking about a little game that is kind of close to him. So, I'm gonna go ahead and let you start with a 2.5 minute timer there. Go ahead, take it away, Jay.
Alrighty. I'm gonna be talking about Uncharted today.
Gosh. Coming a little harder there with the accent.
I'm going to be talking about Uncharted today.
There we go.
No, the Uncharted series has been. I picked up the Nathan Drake collection for the PS4. I didn't have a PS3, so I missed out on it. But they did an HD remastering of the first three. This is so hard for me to do. Uncharted games. What? Now I know why you wanted me to talk about this. You're a jerk.
I did nothing.
They were wicked fun. I mean, the controls could be a little awkward at the time, and like 1 out of every 3 deaths, I felt like it wasn't my fault. But other than that, like the story was good. The level design was really unique and fun. And it was very different from any other kind of game I had played. And that being said, there's DLC coming out for Uncharted 4 that they haven't announced like a date for it yet or anything like that. I forget what it's called. I already closed the window because I'm a friggin' idiot. But it's basically, it takes place after Uncharted 4 ends. But it doesn't star Nathan Drake. It stars Nadine, who was kind of one of the antagonists from Uncharted. I almost said Fallout. Uncharted 4. Along with one of the other characters from Uncharted 2 and 3, whose name is slipping in my head real quick. This is awful. I need to pull the article up. Matt, edit this out.
No, totally leaving it. Which it's an interesting thing to me because, like, doesn't that seem like a risky gamble to take when you have this series with such an iconic main character and you just kind of shift gears? Which, I mean, I know it's a DLC, so if anywhere to do it, this would be where.
Yeah.
But that seems a little, at least if he's not going to be in there at all, it seems really odd.
Yeah, it is kind of odd to me. And it kind of makes sense, I guess. Like, maybe they're looking for a way that they can keep the series alive without Nathan Drake. Because his story is kind of wrapped at this point. I mean, honestly, it was kind of wrapped at the end of 3, and then they kind of, like, put a shoehorn in the plot to make room for a 4th one. And at this point, like, you're just beating a dead horse. So maybe they're seeing, like, okay, maybe we can make this game work with other characters. And so they can kind of keep it alive that way. I mean, Naughty Dog's never really been one to beat a dead horse. So I don't really think that might be accurate, but, you know, who knows?
So, like, I mean, for you personally as a big Uncharted person, is this something that's going to be on your radar at all?
I'm not a big DLC person. We'll probably end up talking about that at some point during the next episode 10, because it's going to be a big one. So it's going to have to be a ton of content for not a lot of money.
Well, I guess what are we talking about when we say not a lot?
I mean, it really depends on the content to dollar ratio. Like, if it's a half-hour DLC and I'm spending like $10-20 on it, no thanks. If it's, if it's that much and it's $5, then okay, yeah, sure, I can drop a $5 on that, no problem. If it's like 3 or 4 hours, then sure, I'll drop a $20 on that because,
right.
I mean, the Uncharted games are kind of short anyway. But the challenge comes, I mean, first off, they're replayable as heck. And second of all, the challenge comes from, or the length of it can come from the challenge of the game. They can be difficult. So
that's Uncharted. That's going to be the DLC for that. Be sure to be on the lookout for that if you are an Uncharted fan. If not, I would say that's
no release date as of yet. So we'll see.
If not, I would say that's probably not worth looking into if you're not an Uncharted fan. Would you?
Well, yeah.
Get anything?
I mean, if you don't have Uncharted 4, then you're not going to care about the DLC. But if you've never played the Uncharted series and you have a PS4, if you're like me and like you didn't have a 3, but the 4 has been killing it, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, then I would highly recommend the Uncharted series.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this episode, guys. So thank all of y'all for stopping by and listening as always. Make sure you go check out Jay's channels. We'll have a link to his Twitch and YouTube in the description below. And for the question of the day today, I know we talked about Microsoft a good bit at the beginning of this episode. So it's going to be, what was a Microsoft exclusive? And this can be at any point from the existence of Microsoft forward. It doesn't matter what console it was.
So the Xbox One, the Xbox 360, or the Xbox One?
Right. Or even PC if you want to.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Microsoft exclusive that really stood out to you, whether it be that it was unique or that you just remember it really well or that it was fun gameplay, whatever it was, just something that sticks in your memory and you always remember it, and it happens to be an exclusive. And mine's going to be a weird one that maybe not a lot of people know, but it's actually a game called The Suffering.
Never heard of it.
It was a horror game, which is not the type of games I play at all, but it's really hard to get out of my brain because it was so unique at the time. It came out on the original Xbox. So it's been a while. Lord, I can't remember what year that would have been. But it was this game to where you were in this prison for murdering your wife and child, or children rather. Okay. Now you were framed.
So another average Tuesday for you.
Right. You were framed, so it didn't actually happen, but at the point in time of the game starting, you don't know that. So that's a thing, and then...
So spoilers, I guess.
Yeah, spoilers on a game that's 15 plus years old. So that's a thing, and then, man, stuff gets crazy, like to the point of monsters and things that cut you and eat people and are weird experimentation things, and it was just... such a specific game that it always comes to mind when I think of a Microsoft exclusive as opposed to, Halo. So that's my answer for that. So, Jay, what would be something for you?
I mean, I mentioned it earlier in the episode. Mine would definitely be Rare Replay. For those that are uninitiated, Rare Replay is basically Rare, the company that used to make all those awesome Nintendo games after they got bought by Microsoft. They basically packaged together 30 of their best games, including Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie and Perfect Dark, Jet Force Gemini, like all these really like full-length games, like even and some of the older ones too, like Saber Hunt, I think it's called, or whatever. It's like a really short, awkward, kind of dumb game. But they made it all on one game, and it's $30 for 30 games, including like full-length games like Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie, and Nuts and Bolts. And yeah, it's an Xbox One exclusive. I wish I could have it, but I have no desire to spend money on an Xbox. Like, see the beginning of this episode for why. So if it ever comes to PC, I'll pick it up in a heartbeat, but it won't. So they've already said it won't.
Well, we've bashed Microsoft enough for today. So
don't get me wrong, I like Microsoft.
Oh yeah, like I do. They've made us salty for some reasons, but
they just need to step their game up, and they'll be good.
They do. But again, that's going to be it for today's episode, guys. I thank y'all for stopping by and listening. Make sure you check out Jay's channel. Make sure you answer the question of the day: what would be a Microsoft game that was unique to you? And as we've said in the past 2 episodes, episode 10 is the next week. So you got one more chance, which is on this video, to let us know, hey, what do you want us to talk about in episode 10? Preferably gaming topics, but whatever you want to put, we'll at least read it in the comments. So if you have a topic that you would like us to discuss, make sure you put it in there. Otherwise, we're not going to see it. And if it's something that we think would be a cool thing to talk about, then we are definitely going to hit it up.
Yep, I am looking forward to ignoring all of your comments and just talking about Zelda for an hour and a half. It's going to be good.
But as always, that's going to be it for the podcast. Thank you guys for stopping by and listening. And we will catch y'all on episode 10.
It's gonna be big. All right, I'm going back to playing Zelda.